There is a town in Kansas where the median rent is $437 a month. The grocery basket runs 31% below the national average. A two-bedroom house with a yard, a porch, and a working furnace sells for under $90,000. On paper, this is the American dream rewound 40 years. On paper, your Social Security check covers everything, with money left over for a steak on Friday. And then you read the second page of the report. The nearest hospital with a cardiac unit is 52 miles away. The closest oncologist takes patients from 4 counties. The grocery store that sells fresh produce closes at 7. The math works. The geography is the price. And the price, my friend, is not always paid in dollars. Sometimes it is paid in minutes during a heart attack. Sometimes in a water line that runs 3 days a week. Sometimes in a main street where 3 of every 5 storefronts have plywood instead of glass. This is Report State, and tonight I am going to walk you through 10 towns in the United States where retirement on $900 a month is not a fantasy. It is a calculator. But every line item that looks like a miracle has a footnote written in fine print that nobody hands you at the closing table. Brochure America wants to sell you Florida. Glossy condos, palm trees, a community pool with 70 people doing water aerobics. The brochure does not mention property taxes that doubled in 5 years, insurance premiums that ate the 3rd bedroom, or the fact that the median rent in the part of Florida you can actually afford now equals what you paid for your first house in 1982. Brochure America wants you to believe that retirement is a place. Math America knows retirement is a number. And that number has to fit inside another number, and the second number does not grow. The Social Security Administration reported in 2024 that the average retired worker benefit landed at $1,907 per month. The median, depending on how you slice the data, sits closer to $1,800. $900 is the floor. It is what a widow without a full work history pulls. It is what a man who took early retirement at 62 ends up with when the cancer came at 61. $900 is the number that scares people. So tonight, we are going to find 10 places where $900 buys you a roof, a kitchen, and a pulse. I have a list, 10 towns. We are counting down from number 10 to number 1, and number 1 is going to bother you. It bothered me. Number 1 is a town where you can live on $750 a month. The house is yours, the property tax is almost zero, and nobody, and I mean nobody, talks about why. There is a place where the median home price is $48,000, and the property tax is $290 a year. There is a place where the air smells like sulfur, and the rent is $200 below the national basement. There is a place where you can walk into the social club, sit down with 5 other retirees who already cracked the code, and order a coffee for $1. Real coffee, not the gas station kind. I found these places by reading Bureau of Labor Statistics regional cost of living tables until my eyes bled, by cross-referencing Social Security data with American Community Survey median rent figures, by calling realtors who answered the phone on the second ring because the office is empty. This is not a travel list. This is a budget weapon. So before we go any further, do me a favor, subscribe, click the bell. Because the next time some financial guru on television tells you that you need $2 million to retire, you are going to want this video saved. You are going to want to send it to your sister, to your brother-in-law who got laid off at 58, to the friend who keeps saying she will work until she dies. You are going to want the receipts. Tonight, you get the receipts. Let's break it down. Number 10, Pittsburg, Kansas. The college town discount. Population around 20,000, anchored by a state university, 3 hospitals within reasonable distance, and a downtown that did not get the memo that Main Street America was supposed to die in 1990. The median rent here, according to the most recent Bureau of Labor Statistics regional poll and verified through American Community Survey data, sits at $611 a month. The median home price clears at $89,000. Let me say that again because I want you to hear the number twice. $89,000 buys you a 3-bedroom, 2-bath with a basement and a driveway. The grocery index runs about 14% below the national average. Utilities, with a Kansas winter factored in, average around $190 a month if you do not heat the basement. A retired school teacher, I will call Eleanor Whitcomb, lives on Joplin Street in a yellow house she bought for $72,000 in 2019. Eleanor pulls $1,300 a month from Social Security. After her mortgage, taxes, utilities, groceries, and a once-a-week dinner at the diner with a woman named Margaret, Eleanor has $400 left. Every month. Free. She uses it for books, for the occasional drive to Joplin, Missouri to see her grandchildren, and for what she calls the Dignity Fund, which is a coffee can in her closet she does not touch unless something breaks. That is the Pittsburg model. Modest, functional, repeatable. Here is what nobody tells you. Pittsburg works because of the university. Pittsburg State pulls 8,000 students through the town every fall, which means the grocery stores stay open, the pharmacy has a real pharmacist, and the urgent care has a doctor on shift past 9 p.m. Take the university out of the equation, and Pittsburg becomes a different town. The closest Level 1 trauma center is in Kansas City, 210 miles north. If you have a stroke in Pittsburg at 3 in the morning, the math is generous. If you have an aortic dissection, the math is cruel. A man on a Reddit thread about Midwest retirement, posting under the handle Prairie Hardware, wrote, and I am quoting because I want you to hear how a real person describes it, __quote_0__. Picture this. It is a Tuesday morning in October. You walk to the small bakery on Broadway, you buy a coffee for $1.50, you sit on a bench, and you watch college kids hustle to class with backpacks. The leaves are gold. Your knees do not hurt because you walked 4 blocks instead of fighting traffic for an hour. That is the dream. The dream has a footnote. The footnote is the ambulance ride. Pittsburg is a discount, and the discount is real, but the discount has a deductible written in distance. If you go in eyes open, Pittsburg gives you a life. If you go in eyes shut, Pittsburg gives you a postcard, until it doesn't. The sarcastic note. The financial press will tell you that the secret to retirement is asset allocation. The secret to retirement is geography. Eleanor Whitcomb, with her yellow house and her Dignity Fund, is doing better than half the suburban Houston retirees pulling $3,000 a month. Because Houston eats $3,000. Pittsburg eats $1,300 and gives you change. And if you think Pittsburg is wild, wait until you see what oil money left behind in Oklahoma when it walked out the door. Number 9. Ardmore, Oklahoma. The oil money ghost. Population around 25,000, sitting on Interstate 35 about halfway between Oklahoma City and Dallas, which means access without congestion. Ardmore was, for about 60 years, an oil town. The Hilton field made men rich, then made them ordinary, then made them gone. The mansions on the north side of town now sell for under $140,000. Median rent across the city sits at $640 a month. The median home price is just under $110,000. Property tax in Carter County runs notoriously low. A retiree named Frank Delano, 67 years old, former heavy equipment operator out of Tulsa, bought a brick 3-bedroom on Stanley Avenue in 2021 for $94,000. Frank's annual property tax bill, after homestead exemption, came in at $612. $612 for the year. In some Texas suburbs, that number is the monthly escrow. The mechanism here is straightforward. Oklahoma's effective property tax rate sits among the lowest in the nation, hovering around 0.89%. Add homestead exemption for a senior. Add the fact that the appraisal districts in many southern Oklahoma counties have not chased the national valuation curve, and you get Frank's bill, $600 a year. The grocery index in Ardmore comes in around 12% below national. Utility bills, even with the Oklahoma summer running an air conditioner 10 hours a day from June through September, hover around $220 a month. Frank, with his Social Security check of $1,560, lives well. He does not live richly. He lives like a person who is not afraid of the mailbox. Now the footnote, because there is always a footnote. Ardmore has a regional medical center. It has a hospital. It does not have specialists in any kind of depth. If Frank needs a cardiologist, he drives 90 miles to Oklahoma City or 130 miles to Dallas. If Frank's wife had needed an oncologist last year, the calendar would have been a stack of road trips. Healthcare in Ardmore is fine until it isn't. And the day it isn't, you measure your life in tank fills. Picture this. Frank is in the front room on a Sunday afternoon watching a Cowboys game on a television he bought used at a Goodwill in Norman. The thermostat says 72. The brick walls hold the heat. He has a beer that cost $1.50 at the corner store. He paid off his last credit card in March. The phone rings. It is his daughter calling from Plano, where her mortgage is $2,700 a month and she is one bad quarter away from falling behind. She wants to know if Dad is okay. Dad is okay. Dad is more okay than she is. That is the inversion. That is the geography premium working in reverse, in his favor, for the first time in his life. Frank told me, and I want you to hear this exactly the way he said it. He said, "I work 41 years, and the only year I felt rich was the one after I sold the house in Tulsa and bought this one for cash." That is not a financial plan. That is a confession. And it is also a map. If you have any equity in any house in any expensive market, the geographic arbitrage is real, and Ardmore is where some of it has gone. But before you load the truck, understand. Oil towns have a particular kind of slow rot. The main street has gaps. The economy is service jobs and a little manufacturing and the medical center. There is no university to keep it propped up. The trajectory is not collapse, but it is not growth either. It is a long, quiet plateau. If you can live on a plateau, Ardmore is your shelf. If you need a wave, keep scrolling. And speaking of slow erosion, the next town has been slowly losing to a river since the Civil War, and somehow it still costs less than your car payment. Number 8. Vicksburg, Mississippi. The river that forgot. Population about 21,000, perched on a bluff above the Mississippi River, a city whose name is in every American history textbook because of a 47-day siege that ended on the 4th of July, 1863. The Civil War made Vicksburg famous. The 20th century made it cheap. Median home price, according to the most recent county records and cross-referenced with realtor data, sits at $95,000. Median rent comes in at $670 a month. There are entire blocks of historic homes, brick and shotgun and Greek revival, where you can buy a 3-bedroom for under $60,000 if you are willing to do some work. Some work meaning a roof, some plumbing, and a polite conversation with the previous owner about what fell off in the last storm. Marta Reyes, 64, retired postal worker out of Memphis, bought a small Greek revival on Cherry Street in 2020 for $48,000. She put another $15,000 into it over 2 years. Hardwood floors that were under 3 layers of carpet, a kitchen that had not been updated since the Carter administration, a back porch that needed everything except its view. Marta's all-in cost, including renovations, came to $63,000. Her property tax runs about $800 a year. She heats with a wood stove half the winter because firewood in Mississippi is essentially free if you know one person with a chainsaw. Her Social Security check is $1,440. She has, after every fixed expense, about $600 left every month. She runs a little bookkeeping practice out of the front room for 3 local businesses, which adds another $400. Marta lives, by any reasonable measure, comfortably. She lives on the bluff above one of the most photographed rivers in North America. She walks to the National Military Park 3 mornings a week. Here is the parade rest version of the truth. Vicksburg has a poverty rate that has hovered above 25% for decades. The school system has struggled. Crime rates in certain blocks are real, not Reddit hysteria, but documented. A user on a Mississippi retirement forum posted __quote _2 __. The healthcare situation is workable. Merritt Health River Region operates a hospital with reasonable services. For specialists, you drive 45 minutes to Jackson. For a major heart event, you drive an hour and a half. Picture this. You are on Marta's porch on a humid evening in May. The river is brown and slow about a quarter mile below the bluff. Lightning bugs are out. The neighbor across the street, an 80-year-old man named Arthur Pemberton, is on his own porch, and he raises a glass to you, because that is what you do in Mississippi when the sun goes down. The mosquito truck has not come this week. Your back stings. You do not care. Your mortgage does not exist. Your tax bill came in under $900 for the year. Your insurance is reasonable because you are on the high ground and the river has not climbed the bluff in living memory. That is the Vicksburg trade. Cheap, beautiful, historically dense, racially complicated, economically thin. If you can read a map and a neighborhood, Vicksburg gives you a veranda and a story. If you cannot, Vicksburg gives you a problem. The harsh observation. There is a kind of American who wants to retire to a place that has already been famous. They want to walk the same streets where something happened. Vicksburg sells that for under $100,000 because the rest of the country forgot. The rest of the country is not coming back. That is your discount. That is also your warning. A town that the country has stopped looking at will not have a hospital expansion announced next year. It will have the hospital it has now, possibly less. Plan accordingly. And if Vicksburg is the river that forgot, the next stop is the spa town that the 20th century stopped visiting. Number 7. Hot Springs, Arkansas. The older parts. The spa town decay. Hot Springs in 1940 was the Las Vegas before Las Vegas. Gangsters from Chicago took the train down to soak in the thermal baths and shoot dice in back rooms that everyone in town knew about and nobody in the state would name. Bathhouse Row was the artery. The Arlington Hotel was the heart. Then air travel killed the train. Vegas killed the gambling. The thermal water somehow kept flowing, but the money that used to ride on top of it went somewhere else. The result, in 2026 terms, is a town where the famous parts are tourist priced and the older neighborhoods are something else entirely. Median home price across the city sits around $140,000. But in the older sections, particularly the streets that climb the hills behind the historic district, you can find solid 2 bedrooms for $65,000 to $80,000. Rent in those same neighborhoods averages $590 a month for a 1-bedroom. Carlos Mendoza, 69, a retired mechanic out of Little Rock, bought a small 2-bedroom on a hillside off Whittington Avenue in 2022 for $71,000. The house has a view of the National Park ridgeline. Carlos pays his property tax in one check every October. Last year, the check was $640. His Social Security comes in at $1,620 a month. He has a small private pension from a union job, $390 on top. Carlos has more breathing room than most retirees in this country. He goes to the bathhouses twice a week. The municipal bathhouse, the one that costs $25 for a soak, not the boutique ones that charge $100. He says the water has not changed since 1912, which is technically true, since the water you soak in today fell as rain about 4,000 years ago and has been heating underground ever since. The footnote on Hot Springs is climate and slope. Those hillside homes are cheap because the lots are difficult, the streets are narrow, and the older houses have foundations that did not anticipate the kind of rain Arkansas gets in 2026. Flooding in the lower neighborhoods is more frequent than it was 20 years ago. Insurance carriers have begun to quietly raise premiums or non-renew older policies. The healthcare in Hot Springs is decent. CHI St. Vincent operates a hospital. For trauma, the run is to Little Rock, 55 miles. The town has a high concentration of retirees, which means the social fabric is built for people in their 60s and 70s. There are 3 different senior centers. There is a library that keeps the lights on past 8. There is a Walmart that has more mobility scooters than shopping carts on a Tuesday morning. Picture this. Carlos is in the bathhouse on a Wednesday. The water is 104 degrees. There is steam on the tile. There is a man across the room from him who used to be a lawyer in Memphis, a woman knitting in the dressing area who used to teach high school in St. Louis. Nobody asks anybody what they used to do. Nobody cares. The water does not care. The water has been here for 4,000 years. Your career was a rumor. That is the hot springs feeling, and it is worth more than money to certain kinds of people. To others, it is a slow surrender. Know which one you are before you sign the deed. The Savage Line. Hot Springs is a town that survived its own funeral and now sells tickets to the wake. If you can read the map, you find the cheap streets behind the famous ones. If you only read the brochure, you pay tourist prices for tourist memories. Read the map. Read the map every time. And from the spa town that forgot to die, we drive west into a desert town that the heat is slowly trying to finish off. Number 6. Kingman, Arizona. The Route 66 Mirage. Kingman sits in the high desert of northwestern Arizona, on the old Route 66 between Las Vegas and Flagstaff. Population around 34,000. Median home price $192,000, which is higher than the previous towns, but the rental market is where Kingman gets interesting. Median rent on a one-bedroom comes in at $620 a month. Two bedrooms in the older parts of town run between $750 and $900. Property tax in Mojave County is famously low, with effective rates well under 1%. There is no state tax on Social Security in Arizona. The grocery index runs about 7% below national. On the calculator, Kingman is generous. On the thermometer, Kingman is a problem. Ruth Sandoval, 71, a retired bookkeeper out of San Bernardino, sold her California condo in 2020 for $240,000 and bought a small Adobe-style house in Kingman for $110,000. She put the difference, after closing costs, into a fixed annuity that pays her $470 a month. With Social Security at $1,390, Ruth pulls just under $1,900 a month. Her fixed costs, including a modest electric bill that she keeps modest by waking up early, hover around $800. She lives well. From October through April, May through September is a different sport. Kingman in July clocks 115 degrees on a regular basis. The shade index, which is a real measurement that nobody outside of the desert Southwest cares about, is brutal. There are not enough trees. There is not enough overhang. An older home with original ductwork can run an electric bill that doubles between June and August. Ruth's June bill last year was $410. Her January bill was $87. That is the desert tax. You save on property tax, you pay it back to the utility. The healthcare situation in Kingman is the other piece. Kingman Regional Medical Center is a real hospital with real services, but specialists are thin. For complex cardiac care, the road is 100 miles to Las Vegas or 200 to Phoenix. The ambulance service is competent. The wait times can be long because the geography is wide and the population is older. According to Health Resources and Services Administration designations, Mojave County has been classified as a health professional shortage area for primary care. That is not opinion. That is a federal designation written on a federal map. Picture this. It is a Saturday afternoon in late June. Ruth has the blinds drawn, the swamp cooler running on top of the central air, a damp washcloth on the back of her neck, and a glass of iced tea sweating onto a coaster. The thermometer outside reads 112. There is a dust devil moving across an empty lot 2 blocks away. She has a book. She has a cat. She has a working air conditioner. That last item is the only one that matters. 3 years ago, her neighbor, a widow named Helen who was 83, lost power for 14 hours during a July outage. Helen did not make it. The Mojave County Coroner's report listed the cause. Heat is not weather in Kingman. Heat is a creditor. It collects. So when you put Kingman on your retirement list, you do not just count the property tax. You count the resilience of the grid, the age of the air conditioner, the proximity of someone who will check on you when the power goes out. That is not in the brochure. That is not in the realtor's pitch. That is the second page of the report, and the second page is where the truth lives. The report state rule. If a town's headline number requires a working appliance to keep you alive, the appliance is part of the budget. Plan for the day it breaks. Plan for the day the grid fails. Plan for the neighbor who will knock on the door. If you do not have a plan for those three things, the cheap rent is not cheap. It is a lottery ticket with your name on it. And from the heat that kills quietly, we drive east into a town famous for something it did not do, which sells houses for a price that almost nobody believes. Number 5. Roswell, New Mexico. Aliens and empty pharmacies. Roswell, population around 48,000, will be famous forever for a weather balloon that crashed in 1947 and a story that the Air Force has been correcting and recorrecting for almost 80 years. The aliens are a tourism economy. They bring in a few $1 million a year. They are not why retirees come here. Retirees come here because the median home price sits at $140,000. The median rent is $710 a month. The property tax is among the lowest in the Southwest, and New Mexico exempts a large portion of Social Security from state tax for lower-income filers. The grocery index in Roswell runs about 9% below national. The summers are hot but dry, the winters are mild, and the elevation, at 3,500 feet, takes the edge off the heat in a way Phoenix or Tucson cannot. A man I will call Theodore Brennan, 68, a retired postal worker, bought a stucco 3-bedroom on the north side of Roswell in 2021 for $112,000. His property tax last year ran $940. His Social Security comes in at $1,580. His monthly utility average, including water, sewer, electric, and gas, hovers around $240. Theodore is not rich. Theodore is solvent, which is more than most Americans his age can say. He spends his afternoons at a coffee shop on Main Street, where a small black coffee is $1.75, and refills are free if you do not ask too loudly. He is friends with 3 other retirees who meet there at 2 p.m. every weekday. They call themselves the second shift, because they used to be the first shift, and now they have time. Here is the catch on Roswell: the pharmacy situation. New Mexico has been struggling with pharmacist shortages for years, and Roswell, despite its size, has watched chain pharmacies cut hours, close locations, and consolidate prescriptions to fewer counters. A retiree on 5 regular medications can find themselves driving 30 miles to fill a prescription that used to be 3 blocks away. The hospital, Eastern New Mexico Medical Center, is a real facility, but specialty care is thin. Cancer treatment requires regular trips to Albuquerque, 200 miles north, or to Lubbock, 115 miles east. For a retiree without a reliable car, those trips are a logistical mountain. There is also the issue, and I am not going to soften this, of the regional economy. Roswell's population has been roughly flat for 2 decades. The dairy industry props up the surrounding county. The school district has struggled. The Main Street has new businesses next to permanently closed ones. It is a working town, not a growing one. Retirement here is for people who are comfortable with a flat line on the chart. Picture this. Theodore is at the coffee shop. The wall has a framed black and white photograph of a sheriff in 1947, holding what looks like a piece of foil. There is a postcard rack near the door, selling alien magnets to tourists who came down from Albuquerque on a Saturday road trip. Theodore does not buy the magnets. Theodore knows the truth, which is that the magnets pay the rent on the building, which keeps the coffee shop open, which keeps the second shift in business. The economy of Roswell, in a real way, runs on a story that everyone agrees not to fully believe. That is not unique to Roswell. That is the economy of half the small towns in America. They sell a story. The story keeps the lights on. The retirees benefit. The retirees pay taxes. The town breathes. The report state caveat. If you take Roswell, take it for the math, not the myth. The myth is fine. The myth is fun. The myth does not show up at 3 in the morning when your prescription runs out. The math does. And from the town that runs on a story, we head north to a town that runs on a treaty. Number 4. Tahlequah, Oklahoma. Cherokee capital, federal healthcare. Tahlequah is the capital of the Cherokee Nation, population about 16,000, sitting in the green hills of northeastern Oklahoma. This town is on this list for a reason that the other towns are not: the healthcare. If you are a citizen of the Cherokee Nation or a member of certain other tribes through reciprocity, you have access to the W.W. Hastings Hospital and the Cherokee Nation Outpatient Health Center, both of which are operated through the Cherokee Nation Health Services System. For eligible patients, services are provided at minimal or no cost. That single fact rewrites the retirement math for tens of thousands of Native American elders, and it puts Tahlequah on a list that few other small towns of its size could ever earn. But Tahlequah is not only for tribal citizens. The town itself, with its university, Northeastern State, and its position on the Illinois River, has a functional small economy and a cost of living that runs well below the national average. Median home price comes in at $150,000. Median rent on a 2-bedroom averages $720. Property tax in Cherokee County runs low. Grocery prices run about 10% below national. For a non-tribal retiree, Tahlequah still works on the calculator. With the caveat that healthcare access is the standard regional drive to specialists, generally to Tulsa, 65 miles west. A woman named Beatrice Hollowell, 72, a Cherokee citizen and retired social worker, lives on a small lot off Muskogee Avenue in a modest single-story home she has owned for 31 years. Her mortgage was paid off in 2015. Her property tax last year was $440. Her Social Security comes in at $1,320 a month. Her health care, including her diabetes management and a recent knee surgery, has been provided through Cherokee Nation Health Services. Out-of-pocket cost on the knee, including physical therapy, has been close to nothing. Beatrice's monthly nut, after groceries, utilities, fuel for her 12-year-old sedan, and the occasional dinner at a barbecue place on the edge of town, runs about $700. She saves the rest. She has a granddaughter starting at Northeastern State next fall. The savings have a destination. Here is the shape of the truth on Tahlequah. The town is a quiet success story for tribal citizens with access to Cherokee Nation services. For non-tribal retirees, it is still a reasonable Midwestern small town with the standard trade-offs. The healthcare for non-eligible residents is provided through Northeastern Health System Tahlequah, which is a real hospital, but specialist depth is limited. The town has a strong cultural fabric. The Cherokee National History Museum is here. The Trail of Tears Interpretive Center is nearby. The university brings young people through, which keeps the bookstores and coffee shops alive. The summers are humid but tolerable. The winters are short. Crime is low. The schools are okay. There is a Walmart. There is a hospital. There is a river you can fish in. Picture this. Beatrice is on her porch on a Sunday morning in September. The leaves on the maples in her front yard are starting to turn. There is a coffee in her hand. There is a Bible on the table next to her chair, opens. Tahlequah, for the right citizen, is one of the most quietly successful retirement towns in the country, and almost nobody outside of Oklahoma talks about it. The report, State Observation. The American retirement crisis is, in large part, a healthcare cost crisis. Any town where healthcare is structurally cheaper, whether through tribal sovereignty, university hospital systems, or a federal designation, deserves a line on every list. Tahlequah earns its spot. And from a town built on a treaty, we head east into Appalachia, into a town built on coal that has been quietly becoming a town built on cheap real estate. Number 3, Cumberland, Maryland. The Appalachian Discount. Cumberland sits in the narrow western finger of Maryland, in the Allegheny Mountains, population around 18,000. This was, for a century, a railroad town and a coal town. The railroad consolidated, the coal moved out. The town shrank. The result, in 2026, is a place where the median home price comes in at $98,000, and the median rent on a two-bedroom averages $670 a month. There are streets in Cumberland where you can buy a sturdy four-bedroom Victorian for under $70,000, with the caveat that you will be doing some work on the porch and possibly the roof. The geographic position is unusual and worth pausing on. Cumberland sits within a 2-hour drive of Pittsburgh, 2.5 hours of Baltimore, and about 2 hours of Washington, D.C. That puts a dying small town within reach of 3 major medical systems. For a retiree willing to make the drive for specialists, the access is meaningfully better than what you find in similar-priced towns in Mississippi or Oklahoma. The local hospital, UPMC Western Maryland, is a real regional facility. For routine and even some serious care, you do not have to leave town. Eleanor Whitcomb has a cousin in Cumberland. I mentioned Eleanor earlier in Pittsburgh. Her cousin, a man named Harold Whitcomb, 66, retired from a lifetime of work in a paper mill in West Virginia, bought a small 2-story brick on Bedford Street in 2020 for $62,000. He put a new roof on it for $9,000. He has a wood stove for backup heat. His property tax last year ran $910. His Social Security check is $1,470. He lives, by his own account, better than he did when he was working. The footnotes on Cumberland are real, and they need to be on the table. The town has been losing population for decades. The school system has consolidated. There are blocks where multiple homes are vacant. Some of those vacancies are opportunities, others are problems, and telling the difference requires a walk through the neighborhood at different times of day. The opioid crisis has hit Western Maryland hard, and Cumberland has not been spared. There are streets that are fine. There are streets that are not. The locals know which is which. A newcomer needs to spend time before signing. The winters are real Appalachian winters. Snow accumulates. Heating bills in an older home with original windows can run $300 a month from December through February. Plan for it. Picture this. Harold is at the diner on Center Street on a Tuesday morning. The breakfast plate is $6.90. 2 eggs, bacon, hash browns, toast, coffee. The coffee gets refilled twice without him asking. There is a man at the counter who used to drive a B&O locomotive, which has not run through Cumberland in any commercial sense in decades, but he tells the story like it was last week. The waitress calls Harold by his first name. The window has a view of the old downtown, which is half restored, half forgotten. Harold's house 4 blocks away is paid off. His tax bill is under $1,000. His check shows up on the 3rd Wednesday of every month. His blood pressure medicine costs $9 at the local pharmacy because he has a Medicare Part D plan that actually works. This is a life. This is not a magazine spread. This is a working retirement in a town that the country mostly stopped looking at, which is precisely why it works. The report: State Rule of Appalachian Arbitrage. The towns that the country forgot are the towns where your money still has weight. The forgetting is not a moral verdict. The forgetting is an opportunity. But the forgetting also means that the trajectory is not up. You are buying into a flat line, possibly a slow decline, and you need to know that going in. If your retirement plan requires the town to grow, Cumberland is not your town. If your retirement plan requires the town to remain affordable for the rest of your life, Cumberland is one of the safer bets in the eastern United States, and from the Appalachian discount, we head south into a town where the discount is even deeper, and the reason for the discount is harder to talk about. Number 2, Pine Bluff, Arkansas, the stigma discount. I'm going to be direct with you about Pine Bluff because soft language does not serve anyone shopping for a place to spend the last third of their life. Pine Bluff is a city of about 37,000 people in southeast Arkansas. It has been losing population for 40 years. The median home price in Pine Bluff sits at $60,000. There are entire neighborhoods of single-family homes selling for under $40,000. Median rent on a two-bedroom comes in at $590 a month. Property tax is low. The grocery index runs more than 15% below national. On pure numbers, Pine Bluff is one of the cheapest small cities in the United States. There is a reason for the price. And the reason is not a single thing. It is a stack of things, and you need to see the stack honestly before you decide. Pine Bluff has, for years, ranked near the top of national lists for violent crime per capita. That ranking is real. It is not a coastal media exaggeration. The local newspaper covers it. The local government has been working on it for 2 decades. The progress has been uneven. Crime is concentrated in certain neighborhoods and on certain blocks. There are parts of Pine Bluff where you can live a quiet, safe, ordinary life and never have a problem. There are parts where you cannot. Telling the difference, again, requires time on the ground, conversations with neighbors, daylight walks, and the humility to admit that what you read on the internet is 1/10 of the picture. The city has a hospital, Jefferson Regional Medical Center, which is a real facility. Specialists are available. For complex care, the run is to Little Rock, 45 miles north. The local economy has struggled. The main street has empty storefronts. The school district has had its own crises. Why is Pine Bluff on this list? Because for a specific kind of retiree, with eyes open and a plan in place, Pine Bluff offers a financial reset that almost nowhere else in the country can match. A man named Ezekiel Hawthorne, 63, retired early after a back injury, bought a brick 3-bedroom on a quiet block on the north side of Pine Bluff in 2022 for $38,000. Ezekiel paid cash from the sale of a small house in suburban St. Louis. His property tax last year was $390. His Social Security disability check, which converts to retirement at full retirement age, is $1,220 a month. Ezekiel's monthly fixed costs, including utilities, groceries, internet, insurance, and a small allowance for fuel and incidentals, runs about $750. He saves what is left. He has, for the first time in his adult life, a savings account that grows. He picked his block carefully. He spent 3 weeks staying in a short-term rental in Pine Bluff before he bought, walking different neighborhoods in the morning and the evening, talking to barbers, talking to the woman who runs the laundromat, talking to a deacon at a church on Cherry Street. He bought on a block where 5 of the 8 neighbors had been there for more than 15 years. That was the signal he was looking for. Picture this. Ezekiel is on his front step on a Saturday afternoon in March. The redbud tree in his small front yard is just starting to bloom. The neighbor to his right, a retired school teacher named Mrs. Beaumont, is sweeping her porch. The neighbor to his left, a Vietnam veteran named Curtis, is working on a truck in the driveway. A church van rolls down the street with the windows down and gospel music coming out of the speakers. Ezekiel waves. The driver waves back. This is the Pine Bluff that the crime statistics do not capture. This is the block where the math works, because the people on the block decided 30 years ago that this was the block they were going to keep. 2 streets over, the picture is different. 6 streets over, the picture is different again. Pine Bluff is not a city. Pine Bluff is a quilt. You buy the square, not the blanket. The report state warning said plainly. Pine Bluff is the highest reward, highest scrutiny entry on this list. If you take it lightly, it will hurt you. If you take it seriously, with research, with neighborhood walks, with a careful read of the block before the read of the price, it can give you a financial life that no other small American city of comparable amenities can offer. The stigma discount is real. The stigma is also, in part, real. Both things can be true at the same time. The retiree who can hold both ideas in their head at once is the retiree who walks away from Pine Bluff with $30,000 saved a year. The retiree who only sees the price tag and not the map is the one who calls a moving truck 6 months later and loses $10,000 on the resale. A note on the literature. I want to be transparent about why Pine Bluff is on this list at this rank. The Bureau of Labor Statistics regional cost of living data is unambiguous. Pine Bluff sits at one of the lowest cost indexes in the country. The American Community Survey numbers on home prices and rents back it up. Kiplinger has, in multiple years, flagged Arkansas as a tax-friendly state for retirees. The contradiction between favorable cost data and unfavorable safety data is not a contradiction the data resolves for you. The data states the situation. You decide whether you can live in the situation. That is, in the end, the framework for every town on this list. The data is honest. The data is not your decision. Your decision is yours, and the consequences are yours. And from a town where the discount is deep and the reasons are complicated, we cross the country to the place that broke me a little when I researched it, and which sits at number 1 for reasons that the polite versions of these lists do not put in print. Number 1. The McAllen-area Texas colonias. The $750 a month life, and the price you do not pay in dollars. I want to be careful here, because what I am about to describe is a real thing with real people in a real place, and the real people are not statistics. They are mothers and grandfathers and grandchildren and church deacons and welders and women who have been running unofficial daycares out of their kitchens for 30 years. The colonias of South Texas, particularly in Hidalgo, Starr, and Cameron counties, are unincorporated residential communities along the United States and Mexico border. They began appearing in significant numbers in the 1950s and accelerated through the 70s and 80s when developers sold off small, rural lots, often without the infrastructure that incorporated municipalities are required to provide. Roads, water lines, sewers, drainage, streetlights, in many cases, were not part of the deal. The lots were cheap. The houses, often built incrementally by the families themselves over years, became homes. The communities became neighborhoods. The neighborhoods became, in some cases, multi-generational. The numbers, in 2026 terms, are striking. In certain colonias in the McAllen area and the surrounding lower Rio Grande Valley, you can purchase a small lot with a modest manufactured or self-built home for between $25,000 and $45,000. In some cases, with seller financing or land contracts, the entry cost is even lower. Property taxes on these parcels are minimal, often well under $300 a year. There is no homeowners association. There is, in many places, no zoning. The cost of living, in pure shelter and tax terms, is among the lowest in the entire United States. A retiree, living quietly, on a Social Security check of $900 a month can cover shelter, taxes, food, and utilities, with money left over, in a way that is mathematically impossible in almost any incorporated city in the country. That is the headline. The headline is real. And now I have to tell you the rest, because the rest is the reason this is the controversial number 1 and not just the cheap number 1. The infrastructure in many colonias is incomplete. Water service in some communities is provided through small rural water districts that have improved dramatically over the last 20 years, with significant federal and state investment. But in others, water is delivered by truck, stored in cisterns, or pulled from private wells of varying quality. Sewer service, in some areas, is a connected municipal line. In others, it is a septic tank that was installed in 1983 and has not been inspected since. Streets, in some colonias, are paved. In others, they are caliche, a kind of compacted limestone surface that turns to a slick paste when it rains hard, which it does, sometimes, with very little warning. Streetlights, in some colonias, are present. In others, the night sky is dark in a way that residents of incorporated America rarely experience. Healthcare access varies. The McAllen Metro has hospitals. The drive from a colonia to the nearest emergency room can be 20 minutes, or it can be 50, depending on which colonia and which hospital. For routine care, community health centers, often funded through the Federal Health Resources and Services Administration, provide services on a sliding scale, and many residents rely on them. For specialty care, the trip is into McAllen, Edinburgh, or, for serious cases, into San Antonio or Houston. The academic literature on the colonias is substantial. The book that anchors much of the modern understanding is The Colonias Reader, edited by Angela J. Donaldson and Adrian X. Esparza, published by the University of Arizona Press in 2010. It is a serious, multi-author work that documents the housing patterns, the public health challenges, the infrastructure deficits, and the long, complicated history of these communities. The Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas has published research over the last decade on colonia infrastructure and water access, tracking real progress in the percentage of colonia residents who now have potable water service, while also documenting the gaps that remain. This is not anecdote. This is a documented, decades-long story of communities that built themselves, often outside the formal municipal framework, and which the state and federal governments have, with varying intensity, been trying to bring fully into modern infrastructure standards. A woman I will call Marisol Aguilar, 67 years old, lives in a colonia about 15 miles outside McAllen. Marisol bought her lot, with a small two-bedroom home, in 1994 for $18,000 on a contract for deed. The contract was paid off in 2011. Her property tax this year was $240. Her water service, after a federally funded line extension completed in 2019, is now municipal grade, billed at about $30 a month. Her electricity, with a swamp cooler in summer and a small space heater for the rare cold snap, runs about $90 a month. Her Social Security check is $940. She has, after every fixed cost, about $450 a month for food, fuel, medicine, and the occasional gift to a grandchild. She does not have credit card debt. She does not have a mortgage. She has, in her own words, peace. Marisol's story is one version of the colonia retirement. There are other versions. There are colonias where the water line did not get extended, and residents still rely on cisterns. There are families where a medical emergency, an hour from the hospital, ended differently than it would have ended in McAllen proper. There is the heat, which in the lower Rio Grande Valley is no joke, and which, during a power outage, becomes a serious medical risk for older residents. There is the hurricane risk, real and documented, with Hurricane Dolly in 2008 and Hurricane Hannah in 2020, causing flooding in colonias that incorporated cities had drainage to handle. There is the long, slow, often invisible work of community self-organizing that has, over decades, pushed local water districts and county governments to extend services, install streetlights, pave roads, and bring colonias closer to the standard of incorporated American neighborhoods. The progress is real. The gaps are also real. Why is this the #1 entry? Because for the retiree whose budget is closer to $900 than to $1,900, and who cannot make the math work in any of the previous 9 towns, the colonias of South Texas represent one of the few remaining places in the United States where shelter and dignity can coexist on a Social Security minimum. The community fabric in the established colonias is dense. Neighbors know each other. Churches are active. Volunteer fire departments and community health workers are part of the social infrastructure in ways that suburban America has largely lost. The Spanish language is dominant in many colonias, which is a feature for some retirees and a barrier for others. The cultural connection to the broader Mexican-American history of the Rio Grande Valley is part of daily life. For a retiree who fits, the fit can be very good. For a retiree who does not understand what they are buying into, the mismatch can be severe. The report. State position. Said plainly. The colonias are not a punchline. The colonias are not a tragedy. The colonias are a complicated, multi-generational housing solution that emerged because formal American housing markets failed in the lower Rio Grande Valley to provide affordable shelter to working-class families for most of the 20th century. The result is a patchwork of communities with real assets and real deficits, where the cost of entry is among the lowest in the country, and where the price of that low cost is paid in the form of infrastructure inconsistency, geographic isolation from specialty healthcare, and exposure to climate risk. The retiree who studies the specific colonia, talks to specific neighbors, drives the specific road in a specific rainstorm, and chooses a community where the water line is in and the road is paved can build a retirement on $750 a month that no other zip code in the country offers. The retiree who buys a parcel sight unseen on the assumption that cheap is cheap will be educated quickly and expensively. Both outcomes are common. The difference is the homework. Picture this. Marisol is on her small concrete porch on a Sunday evening in October. The Rio Grande Valley sun is low. There is a chicken in her side yard and a small lemon tree near the property line. The neighbor across the Caliche Road, a man named Don Refugio, 81 years old, who came to this colonia in 1976, is in his front yard with a cup of coffee. Marisol's daughter, who lives in McAllen proper, is bringing the grandchildren over for dinner, which is going to be tamales that Marisol has been making since 6 in the morning. The water came on at 6 a.m. and has been on all day, which is how it is most days now, since the line was extended. There is a fan in the window. There is a Bible on the small table by the door. There is, in this woman's life, a kind of stability that she did not have when she was working 2 jobs in Houston in the late 1980s, paying rent that ate 3/4 of her income, and watching her children do homework on a kitchen table that was not hers and never would be. That table, now, is hers. The lot is hers. The chicken is hers. The lemon tree, which she planted in 1996, is hers. $750 a month. The math works. The math works. That is the sentence I want you to take with you, because it is the thesis of this entire video, and it is also, in its own way, the warning. The math works in all 10 of these towns. The math works in Pittsburg, Kansas, with its college town stability and its 52-mile drive to the nearest cardiac unit. The math works in Ardmore, Oklahoma, with its $600 property tax bill and its 90-mile run to a specialist. The math works in Vicksburg, Mississippi, with its bluff-side Greek revival and its quilted neighborhoods. The math works in Hot Springs, Arkansas, with its hillside houses and its 4,000-year-old water. The math works in Kingman, Arizona, until the air conditioner breaks in July. The math works in Roswell, New Mexico, until the pharmacy chain consolidates. The math works in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, especially well for Cherokee citizens with access to Cherokee Nation health services. The math works in Cumberland, Maryland, with its Appalachian winters and its Pittsburg and Baltimore medical access. The math works in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, if you read the block and not just the price tag. And the math works in the McAllen colonias if you read the road, the water line, and the neighbors before you sign. In every case, the math works. In every case, the math is not the whole story. There is a second math, the math of distance, the math of resilience, the math of community, the math of the day the air conditioner breaks, the day the prescription runs out, the day the ambulance has to drive 45 miles, the day the water main pumps slow, the day the neighbor knocks on the door because they have not seen the lights on in 2 days. That second math is the math that retirement calculators do not run. That is the math that financial advisors with their suburban Houston offices and their leather chairs and their $3,000 a month assumed budgets do not put on the screen. That is the math that this video and report state and the long, careful walk through 10 real American towns is asking you to run for yourself. There is a kind of American who, hearing this list, will recoil. They will say that no one should have to retire on $900 a month. They will say that the cost of shelter in this country is a national disgrace. They will say that the gap between coastal property values and Social Security benefits is a structural failure of policy. All of those statements are true. None of them are useful to the woman who is 64 years old, looking at her bank statement and trying to decide whether to keep paying $1,200 a month for a 1-bedroom in suburban Sacramento or to drive a U-Haul to one of these towns. The structural critique is correct. The structural critique does not pay her rent in February. What pays her rent in February is a calculator and a map. This video is the calculator. This video is the map. The other kind of American, the one who hears this list and says that any of these towns sound like an adventure. The one who is already on a real estate site searching for property in Pittsburg or Ardmore or Cumberland. That American is closer to the truth. The truth is that retirement in 2026 is, for tens of millions of Americans, a geographic decision. The locations that make the numbers work are not the locations on the magazine covers. They are the locations on the second page of the Bureau of Labor Statistics report, the locations that the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas has been quietly studying, the locations that the academics in the Colonias Reader documented 15 years ago, the locations that Kiplinger lists in its tables, but which no glossy retirement magazine puts on a cover because the cover does not photograph well. The cover photographs Florida. The cover photographs Arizona resort towns. The cover photographs gated communities in the Carolinas, where the entry price is $600,000. The cover lies. The second page tells the truth. I want to give you, before we close, the 4 rules that I have written on a piece of paper that sits on my desk while I do this work, and which apply to every town on this list, and to every town on every future list. Rule 1. The dollar number is never the whole number. Add miles to the nearest hospital. Add the age of the air conditioner. Add the resilience of the local water system. Add the population trajectory of the town over the last 20 years. The real number is the dollar number plus those 4. Rule 2. Walk the block before you sign the deed. The block is everything. The block is the difference between Pine Bluff working and Pine Bluff failing. The block is the difference between Vicksburg on the bluff and Vicksburg in the bottom. The block is the difference between a colonia with a working water line and one with a cistern. The block is the unit of analysis, not the city. Rule 3. Talk to a retiree who already lives there. They will tell you in 20 minutes what the realtor will not tell you in 20 hours. Find them at the diner, at the coffee shop, at the church, at the senior center. Buy them a coffee. Listen. Rule 4. Plan for the worst day. Plan for the heart attack, the broken air conditioner, the prescription shortage, the hurricane, the ice storm, the day the car will not start. If your plan covers the worst day, the average days will take care of themselves. Those 4 rules are not financial advice. They are reading instructions. They are the difference between using this list as a launch pad and using it as a trap. I am report state. I am the person who reads the second page so you do not have to. I am the person who calls the realtor and listens to the silence before the answer. I am the person who reads the Colonias Reader cover to cover and underlines the chapter on water access. I am the person who, when a man in a suit on television says you need $2 million to retire, opens the Bureau of Labor Statistics regional cost of living tables and finds the towns where $200,000 is enough. If this video helped you, like it. If this video angered you, like it twice. If you have a parent or a sibling or a friend who is making a retirement decision in the next 12 months, send it to them. The algorithm will take care of the rest. Subscribe to the channel because the next episode is the dark mirror of this one. The next episode is about the towns that look cheap on paper, but which are cheap for reasons that no homework can fix. The towns where the population has fallen by 60% in 40 years. The towns where the last grocery store closed in 2019. The towns where the school consolidated and the post office cut hours, and the sheriff's office responds in 40 minutes if at all. These towns are cheap for a reason, and the reason is that they are emptying. There is a bottom to that emptying. The bottom is not a place you want to retire to. The bottom is a place to study, to learn from, and to avoid. The next episode draws the line between the towns where the math works and the towns where the math is a mirage. These 10 towns are cheap for a reason. The next 10 are cheap because nobody wants to live in them anymore. There is a difference. Knowing the difference is the difference between a retirement and a regret. Cheap America is real. The price is paid in geography. The price is paid in miles to the nearest hospital, in days the water works, in the age of the air conditioner, in the trajectory of the population, in the depth of the pharmacy bench, in the quality of the block. The price is paid. It is always paid. The question is not whether you pay. The question is whether you know what you are paying for. If you know, the deal can be one of the best deals in the country. If you do not know, the deal will educate you. I am Report State. The receipts are in the description. The sources are real. The Bureau of Labor Statistics is real. The Social Security Administration tables are real. The Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas research is real. The Colonias Reader is real, and on a shelf in a university library that you can drive to and read with your own eyes. The retirees in this video are composites built from documented patterns, but the patterns are real, and the towns are real, and the prices are real, and the trade-offs are real. None of this is invented. All of it is on the second page. Read the second page. Walk the block. Talk to the retiree. Plan for the worst day. The math will work. The math has always worked. For the people who do the homework. The homework is the only thing that has ever separated the retirements that worked from the retirements that did not. I will see you in the next one. Bring your calculator. Bring your map. Bring a friend who is closer to the edge than you are, because the edge is closer than most of us want to admit. And the people who walk the edge with a map and a friend walk it better than the people who walk it alone with a brochure. The brochure lies. The map does not. Drive safe. Read carefully. And remember, when the financial press tells you that retirement requires a number you do not have, the press is selling you a number, not a retirement. The retirement is in the towns. The retirement is in the second page. The retirement is in the homework. Do the homework. The math works. The math has always worked. You just have to know where to look. Now you know where to look. Use it. Share it. Do not let anyone tell you again that retirement is impossible on a Social Security check, because in 10 real American towns, on the second page of the report, the math works. And the math is yours. And the math is waiting for you to come find it. Go find it.